Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and let's break down the ending and post-credit scene of Venom The Last Dance, the finale of Tom Hardy's Venom trilogy, but the Eureka open door to a wider universe of symbiotes. Spoiler warning before I continue. Okay, the third Venom film has two post-credit scenes, one with Knull and another with the aftermath of Area 51, both of them coming after a final battle filled with symbiotes. Really, to best contextualize how this film ends, I really just have to quickly recap the full plot of the movie. So skip to the next chapter if you just want an explanation of the ending and post-credit scenes. Okay, in Venom The Last Dance, Andy Serkis plays Knull, the symbiote god, whose children, the symbiotes, have imprisoned him after a past conflict. Frozen to a throne with his hands wrapped around his sword, all black the necrosword, he opens portals to send the xenophages across the universe to locate the Codex, which is a metaphysical link formed between a symbiote and their host that connects back to the symbiote hive mind, and getting a hold of this will give Knull a key to escape his bondage. And since Venom brought Eddie back from death in the past, they form this codex when they merge into their shared form. So transported back to the 688 universe after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, they make their way from Mexico toward New York to reestablish Eddie after apparently a corrupt judge he was investigating ran him out of town, which is why he was in San Francisco to begin with. Meanwhile, Area 51 is being decommissioned, but secretly Area 55 is fully active under the Imperium program. So in the Marvel Comics, the brood symbiote Imperium refers to the hive of symbiotes that were created by Knull from the living abyss to consume planets and destroy civilizations. Working for Imperium is Dr. Teddy Payne, played by Juno Temple, who is haunted by the memory of her brother Thaddeus dying after she was struck by lightning from a desert storm while they were holding hands and the current flowed into him, killing him. Together, these two characters form a reference to Thaddeus Payne, a scientist who experimented on Venom in the comics. Also under the Imperium program is General Rex Strickland, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who leads the military strike force hunting down the symbiotes who have sought safe haven on Earth over the years. Along with another scientist, Sadie, they interview Detective Mulligan, Stephen Graham, coming back from Venom Let There Be Carnage, who has been bonded with the symbiote now known as Toxin. And Toxin warns them about Knull coming to Earth, saying, "The darkness has teeth," which is reference to a great line that the Abyss has teeth in Donny Cates' King in Black comic storyline. They learn that the Codex tracker on Eddie and Venom can be broken by either Eddie or Venom dying. Now, one of the more interesting things about this film is that General Strickland reports to some shadowy figure who's monitoring various world security feeds. We do not see this figure's face, and he's presented as a mystery villain, but we never figure out who this is. The figure was not listed in the movie's credits. Maybe they intended this figure to be the General, played by Martin McDougal, who clears Eddie's record in the hospital room at the end of the movie, but this mystery man silhouette and his voice seemed way younger. We should also note that Reed Scott is listed in this movie's credits, despite Dr. Dan never appearing in this film after his roles in the first two films. I will say this mystery man to me kind of sounds like Reed Scott, so while I was watching this film, it seemed like either they were setting something up for him, or maybe they were setting up this universe's Norman Osborn. I don't know, it seems like they had something else in mind for this character, and then maybe they had to change his plan late in production, and then they just brought in Martin McDougal to play the General to just kind of, close the book on this arc in the final scene. While I was getting vibes of Oscorp here, or maybe Horizon or Alchemax or something like that, this figure with the trim suit, the calm voice, and the monotone colors of these inserts could be Mr. Negative, a villain Spider-Man fans have been wanting to see for a long time on film, especially after his popular appearances and games. Mr. Negative has an alter ego as Mr. Positive, aka Martin Lee, a Chinese gangster turned philanthropist, and maybe the Chinese connection could actually explain why Sony, who is totally counting on Chinese box office performance for this film, might have had to awkwardly omit an explicit reveal of this character. I'll go more into this in the Easter egg breakdown coming out Saturday. But throughout Venom The Last Dance, Eddie and Venom have to stay separated to evade xenophages hunting them down. They also have to evade Strickland's security forces trying to catch them. In the desert, they join up with the family of Martin, Rhys Ifans, a conspiracy theorist hoping to see Area 51 before it closes. And yes, Rhys Ifans did play Dr. Connors, the Lizard, in The Amazing Spider-Man and in Spider-Man No Way Home. But they join this family and learn some valuable life lessons while singing some David Bowie, and get to Las Vegas, where Eddie and Venom steal a tuxedo from a guy who pees on his feet and run into, okay, Mrs. Chen, and have a great time gambling and dancing, and then Eddie and Venom get captured by General Strickland's forces and taken to Area 51. So the final battle of this movie is a symbiote house party that mixes new symbiote designs with a few specific symbiote cameos. General Strickland plans to shoot Eddie to to end the Codex problem, to stop the Codex that they share from bringing Knull to Earth, also as a bit of payback for Eddie having to kill one of Strickland's soldiers earlier in the film. But then the scientist Sadie, wearing a Christmas tree brooch for whatever reason, sneaks Venom out of containment, and Venom pops out from Sadie and protects Eddie, and then a xenophage arrives and chows down, eating Toxin and Mulligan. And I love the design of these things because they're like walking wood chippers that just blow the blood out the back of their heads. To fight these venophages, Sadie does all of us a favor by releasing all of the symbiotes that are in containment. One bonds to her and forms a green symbiote with red streaks and tendrils. This is Lasher, who takes his form on a girl named Sadie in the 2019 Absolute Carnage comic storyline. And using the red and green color coding of this symbiote, we can apply this to the other symbiotes that we see in the tanks earlier in the film. So I assume some of the other ones we see in this brawl include Scream and Phage, who along with Riot and Agony form the 5 in the Life Foundation comic storyline. It's hard because we mostly just have their color to go on at this part of the movie. They aren't otherwise identified. We see another symbiote binding with the security guard, Jim, who remember checked Dr. Payne in earlier in the film, forming a kind of pudgy stout symbiote. Another Imperium scientist, the female colleague that Sadie told to call her family, bonds with a symbiote forming a pale color that somewhat looks like the Anti-Venom, but she also looked a bit purple or periwinkle in the light, so she might also be Scorn. At one point, 2 symbiotes just decide to jump into each other to form a multi-headed symbiote that could be based on Hybrid, which is a symbiote that forms from the fusion of Agony, Lasher, Phage, Riot, and Scream. So the melee spills out onto the ground outside, where Martin and his family have snuck in hoping to get a glimpse of an alien. Eddie and Venom save this family from a collapsing guard tower, and the new symbiotes try to pin down one of the xenophages, but Strickland just blows them all up with an RPG, killing some of the symbiotes, but the xenophage recovers and emits a beacon to Knull to send even more xenophages. Dr. Payne reveals that she has pocketed her own vial of symbiote sample that zaps with electricity and seems to feed from her residual electric current and her grief that she carries over her brother, and turns her into a purple symbiote with amazing flowing hair that I think must be Agony, though we should know that Agony is not known to have electric current powers in the comics. Eddie, while luring all these xenophages away in a pretty cool motorcycle chase, gets severely wounded, and Venom decides to heal Eddie, and both of them head toward the acid shower that Strickland was using earlier in the film to dispose all of the Area 51 hardware. Venom, though, absorbs all the xenophages into his mass and spits out Eddie, protecting him with a metal hatch. Venom puppets Strickland to activate the acid shower to disintegrate himself and all of the xenophages, telling Eddie goodbye for now. Venom is back, and if The Last Dance has you wishing you could keep a piece of your favorite symbiote with you a little longer, then look no further than Gentle Band's Venom-inspired ring made with real meteorite. Gentle Bands has been making rings since 2017 using unconventional materials like retired spacecraft titanium, antler, and dinosaur fossils, and of course, meteorite. Gentle Band's Eternus ring looks like it came from outer space, because it did. It combines meteorite and tungsten into a black ring with eerie blue flecks that'll make you feel like a symbiote could take over at any moment. If you're someone who prefers not to wear your rings on your fingers, Gentle Bands offers this chain so you can keep your ring close to you even when you can't have it on your finger. Gentle Bands is currently offering free engraving on all orders. Check out the Venom-inspired ring on gentlebands.com and use code NEWROCKSTARS to get a special 25% discount on your new favorite ring today. Strickland gets hit with the acid and detonates a grenade to blow up the whole structure. Sadly, we never get to see Strickland become the Tyrannosaurus symbiote that he does in the comics. With Venom's death, the Codex is null and void. And Knull is trapped once more. As Eddie looks up at the stars, he says to himself, Eureka, finally realizing that open door awakening, the life beyond that Martin had talked to him about earlier in the film. While this is a last dance between Eddie and Venom, this final battle filled the dance floor with a variety of symbiotes who now call Earth their home, and we could follow any number of them in a sequel film. So Eddie recovers, and that general clears his record, making me think that whoever that corrupt judge was, whom Eddie was investigating, must have been pressured by whatever dirt this surveillance state Imperium program could dig up on him. Eddie returns to New York City, and he flashes back to pleasant memories with Venom from the previous film while we hear Maroon 5's Memories. Yep, Eddie looks out at the Statue of Liberty, which he said earlier was a symbol of safe haven for lost souls seeking a new world, and we should note was the setting for the final battle in Spider-Man No Way Home. It was Liberty Island that we all wanted Eddie and Venom to get to in Spider-Man No Way Home, but it took until this film to get him there. Really though, it's the symbolic meaning of the statue. Eddie wants Earth to be a safe haven, a home for refugee symbiotes, and in that way, the dance goes on. Now, by the way, I've been wearing this pretty cool Venom shirt that you can grab at nerdriot.shop, which is the best way to support what we're doing here at New Rockstars. All right, the mid-credit scene returns to Knull in the void. The camera moves up the hilt of his sword, all black, the Necro sword, as his hands are frozen on top of it, gripping it. And he says, "Your champion has fallen. Your planet will be mine. The King in Black is awake. I will kill your worlds. Everyone will burn, and you will watch." And Knull, whose head has been bowed the entire film, his pale hair draped over his face, now raises his head so that we can see his fiery eyes and his mouth full of sharp teeth. What does it mean that the King in Black is awake? What future could this franchise have beyond Eddie Brock's Venom? Well, a bit of history on Knull. Knull's actually a pretty recent addition to Marvel Comics, introduced only in 2018 and explored in Donny Cates' amazing King in Black storyline from 2020 to 2021. Knull comes from the destruction of the Sith iteration of the universe, and the Celestials tasked him to be what they called the King in Black, to look after their creations. But the light of creation made him realize that his kingdom of darkness was being neglected, which led to him feeling bitter and forming his weapon, All Black, and attacking the Celestials. In fact, his decapitation of one of these Celestials led to the comic version of Nowhere, though in the MCU, that version of Nowhere was not created by Knull, and the Celestials that we see in the MCU are not connected to this version of Knull. In King in Black, Knull seeks the Codex from Eddie Brock's son, Dylan Brock, leading to a full-on assault on Earth from Knull's hive mind-controlled symbiote dragons, a crossover event that ties in the Avengers and the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer, really everybody, that culminates in an epic duel with Eddie Brock as he powers up into Captain Universe. Now, while this movie follows the piece of Venom's goo left in the Mexican bar in the 688 universe, there remains a parallel piece of Venom goo left in that bar in the 616 universe at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home. If that piece of Venom crawls its way over to, I don't know, Peter Parker in Spider-Man 4, it could create a separate codex that Knull, in this chasm void between universes, could use to free himself and threaten Earth in the MCU with a swarm of symbiote dragons. It's just that this movie specifically says that this universe is surrounded by a dark abyss, suggesting that where Knull is not in any one universe, but rather in a kind of buffer void that exists between universes. Tom Holland did say that he read a draft of Spider-Man 4 along with Zendaya, confirming her involvement in this fourth film, and hey, maybe MJ could get infected by the symbiote and be Knull's target, and to defend her and to defend all of Earth from a symbiote assimilation, Peter Parker could have to acquire the powers of Captain Universe and fight Knull one-on-one himself. Look, we all have a lot of opinions and hopes and dreams for what we want the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie to be. I don't know if this is my ideal version of that movie, but it could be the one they're working on. And either way, King in Black is a great read. Definitely check it out. I could imagine some folks at Sony eyeing this storyline as their own endgame sized event movie. This movie's director and co-writer Kelly Marcel told IGN, quote, "Trust me, I know full well how important Knull is to the fans, so just as we laid a foundation for Venom, we hope we are doing the same for Knull. The King in Black is way too powerful for one and done. This film introduces Knull, but it just touches the beginnings of his story. Marvel's greatest film villains are developed over time." Now, if Knull doesn't return in Spider-Man 4, this movie did leave us with Juno Temple as Agony and Clark Bacco as Lasher. Sony could follow one of them, or follow a true Anti-Venom storyline set in this universe, or maybe just establish that this right here is the same universe as the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man universe, and let that version of Spider-Man have to deal with aliens for the first time. Now, the second post-credit scene returns to Area 51. The bartender, played by Christopher Fernandez, Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso, in the No Way Home scene restaged for this film after being taken into custody by Rex Strickland's unit, emerges from a desert cave. He runs through the smoldering rubble, and then a cockroach crawls up to the broken vial that Teddy Payne smashed open to release the Agony symbiote. Electricity continues to zap through that broken glass, and the roach touches it, and we cut to black. So this is a reference to the earlier exchange between Dr. Payne and the Area 55 security guard Jim. Dr. Payne mentions how roaches have survived all apocalyptic events on this planet and are still here even after 250 million years. And counting, she says. The fact that the symbiote could now infect one of the oldest and most resilient life forms on this planet, I think it's just meant to suggest that Knull's coming invasion of Earth will take place from the ground up, our ecosystem and animal kingdom. I want to know from you, what did you think about this film? How does Venom The Last Dance rank for you among the other films in the trilogy? Comment down below with your thoughts. Again, nerdriot.shop, a great place to find some holiday gift options for that special nerd in your life. Follow me at EA Voss. Subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.